The barista handing you your coffee might be 72, the greeter at the store, 68, the tax preparer, the school bus driver, the calm voice on the customer service line. Somewhere along the way, retired stopped meaning done working. Today, nearly 1 in 5 Americans over 65 is still in the workforce. Some are there because they want to be. A lot of them are there because the math of retirement never quite added up. And the line between those two groups is a whole lot thinner than you'd think, because from the outside, you honestly can't tell which is which. Retirement, the way we picture it, is actually pretty new. For most of human history, people worked until they couldn't, and then family took over. The idea that you'd stop at 65 and live comfortably for 20 more years only really took hold in the middle of the 20th century. And it rested on what people used to call a three-legged stool. The first leg was Social Security. The government retirement benefit workers pay into their whole careers. The second was the company pension, where your employer promised you a set monthly check for life. That's called a defined benefit plan. The third leg was personal savings. For a while, those three legs held up a whole generation of retirees. Then 2 of the 3 got shorter. Companies mostly stopped offering pensions. In their place came the 401k, a retirement account where you put in your own money and hope the market cooperates. That quietly shifted the risk from the employer onto you. If your savings fell short, that was now your problem to solve. And for millions of families, those savings never grew big enough to matter. Study after study finds that a large share of older households reach retirement age with almost nothing set aside, and that even the ones who did save often hold a nest egg far smaller than the number they'd actually need to live on. That left a lot of people leaning on one leg, Social Security, which was only ever designed to replace part of your income, not all of it. So a gap opened up between what older Americans have coming in and what life actually costs. Working retirees are, in large part, the people filling that gap with the one thing they still have left to sell, their time. So let's talk about the actual money, because this is where the picture gets uncomfortable. Start with what these older workers are trying to cover. The average Social Security retirement check runs a little under $2,000 a month. That's the foundation most retirees are standing on. Now set that against rent or a mortgage, groceries, a car, and the thing that grows fastest of all in later life, healthcare. In a lot of the country, that benefit simply doesn't stretch to the end of the month. So a part-time job isn't fun money or extra spending. It's the difference between covering the bills and falling behind on them. Here's the catch. The jobs many retirees can actually get don't pay anything like their old careers did. Someone coming out of a long professional life often lands in retail, food service, customer support, driving, or seasonal work. These pay by the hour and usually not many hours. A person might work 20 or 25 hours a week and bring home a few $100s before taxes. Economists sometimes call these bridge jobs. Work that carries someone from the end of a career to full retirement, or just from one month's bills to the next. The pay reflects exactly that. It's rarely enough to rebuild a retirement. It's meant to keep the lights on. There's also a quieter penalty built into the job market. Older workers who lose a job tend to stay unemployed longer than younger ones, and when they do find something new, they often take a pay cut to get it. Studies of people who lose a job later in life find that many never earn what they did before. Experience, it turns out, doesn't always command a premium. Sometimes it gets treated as a liability, and the work itself isn't always light. Standing for a full shift, lifting boxes, driving at night, dealing with the public for hours. These are physical jobs done by bodies that are, by definition, older. For someone who genuinely wants the activity and the company, that can be a good trade. For someone doing it only because the rent is due, the exact same shift lands very differently. The task looks identical from the outside. The reason behind it is what separates a choice from a trap. Now flip it around. Who's on the other side of all this work, and what do they get out of it? Whole sectors of the American economy now lean on older workers. Retail, hospitality, home health, warehouses, driving, the gig platforms. These are industries built on part-time, flexible, lower-wage labor, and retirees turn out to be close to an ideal fit. They often don't want full-time hours. Many already have health coverage through Medicare, so the employer doesn't have to provide it. And a lot of them bring decades of reliability and people skills to jobs that are genuinely hard to keep staffed. For an employer, that's an attractive deal. You get an experienced, dependable worker, often without the cost of benefits, on a schedule you can flex up and down as business rises and falls. In a tight labor market, older workers have quietly become a pool that businesses reach into to fill the shifts younger workers won't take. And this isn't some small corner of the workforce anymore. The share of Americans over 65 who are still working has climbed by more than half since the year 2000, from about 1 in 8 back then to nearly 1 in 5 today. A whole slice of the labor market that used to vanish at retirement now stays in, part-time and dependable, propping up businesses that quietly plan around it. Then there's the gig economy, ride-hailing, delivery, task apps, online selling. These platforms market themselves to retirees as freedom. Work when you want, be your own boss, and the flexibility is real. But so is the fine print. Gig workers are usually classified as independent contractors, which means no minimum wage guarantee, no benefits, no overtime, and the cost of gas, the car, and the wear and tear all come out of their own pocket. The platform takes its cut off the top. The worker absorbs the risk underneath. Step back and you can see the real shape of it. The shift away from pensions didn't just move risk onto individuals, it helped create a steady supply of experienced people who need income and will accept part-time, benefit-free, lower-wage work to get it. That's not something the economy stumbled into by accident. It's a labor supply the system now quietly depends on. Here's where it gets strange. You'd think the system would go out of its way to make it easy for a retiree to earn a little extra. In some ways, it does the opposite. Start with something called the earnings test. If you claim Social Security before your full retirement age, which is now 67 for anyone born in 1960 or later, and you keep working, the government temporarily holds back part of your benefit once your earnings pass a certain limit. In 2026, that limit is about $24,000 a year for people under full retirement age. Earn above it, and Social Security withholds $1 for every $2 you make over the line. Now, this money isn't actually gone for good. Once you reach full retirement age, they recalculate and pay it back over time in a slightly higher monthly check. But most people don't know that. All they see is a smaller check in the months they work more, and it feels like a punishment for earning. So some retirees cut their hours just to stay under the limit, turning down income they could really use, all because of a rule they misunderstand. Then there's the tax side. Depending on your total income, part of your Social Security benefit can itself become taxable, and the income thresholds that trigger that tax were set decades ago and never adjusted for inflation. So every year, as benefits and wages drift upward, more retirees cross those old lines and end up owing tax on money they assumed was already theirs. A part-time job can be exactly the thing that tips them over. Add it all up, and a working retiree can face a strange stack of costs at once. A lower-paying job, a benefit temporarily reduced by the earnings test, and taxes on the very Social Security they're leaning on. The extra paycheck still helps, but the system takes a bigger bite out of it than almost anyone expects. And notice who this actually hits hardest. It isn't the retiree with a healthy pension and a full investment account who can earn as much as they like the moment they pass full retirement age. It's the person who claimed early because they had no other option, who's still under that age, and who's working precisely because money is already tight. The rules land heaviest on the people with the least room to absorb them. The paycheck is the part you can see. The costs around it usually aren't. Start with health. For some people, work keeps the mind sharp and the days full, and that's a genuine benefit. But for others, staying on the job means pushing a tired body through shifts it would rather skip, putting off care, or trading rest for hours. When work is a real choice, it can add years of vitality. When it's a necessity, it can quietly wear a person down instead. Then there's age on the job market. Older workers run into age discrimination all the time, even though it's against the law. It's hard to prove and easy to disguise. A resume that never gets a callback. A vague, not quite the right fit. Many older job seekers spend months searching and settle for far less than they're worth, just to be working at all. There's also the double shift. A lot of them are quietly running. Plenty of older workers aren't only holding down a job, they're also caring for a spouse, or a parent even older than they are, or minding grandkids so their own children can work. The paycheck sits on top of hours of unpaid care that never get counted as work at all. There's also the cost of what the work quietly replaces. The retirement people pictured, the travel, the grandkids, the slow mornings gets traded for a schedule. The time you were finally supposed to have becomes time you're selling back. That loss never shows up in any statistic, but it's real, and the people living it feel it every week. And there's a subtler financial cost. Retirees who move in and out of work can complicate their own taxes, their benefits, and their health coverage in ways that cost real money to sort out. The system just isn't built for a life that shifts back and forth between working and retired. It quietly assumes you pick one and stay there. So why does an economy this rich produce so many people working into their 70s out of need, not want? Go back to that three-legged stool. Over the past 40 years, the retirement system quietly moved almost all of the risk onto individuals. Pensions faded out, saving became a personal project, and one that's painfully easy to fall behind on when wages are flat and life keeps getting more expensive. A large share of households now reach their 60s with very little set aside. For them, working longer isn't really a preference. It's the plan because there isn't another one. Social Security was meant to be a floor, not the whole house, and the program's own finances add one more layer of worry. On its current path, its main trust fund is projected to run short sometime in the early 2030s. If Congress does nothing, the law says benefits would fall to what the payroll taxes coming in can cover on their own, roughly 78 cents on every dollar that was promised. That's not a collapse, and it's not a certainty. Lawmakers have patched shortfalls like this before, but it hangs over every retiree's math, and it pushes some of them to keep earning while they still can. Layer longer lifespans and rising health costs on top of all that, and the outcome is almost baked in. More years to pay for, less guaranteed income to pay for them with, and work as the release valve. So what does the money tell us about America's working retirees? For some, this really is a choice, and a good one. Work gives them structure, purpose, and connection, and the extra income is a bonus rather than a lifeline. That version of the working retiree is something to respect, not pity. But for millions of others, the job isn't a choice at all. It's what fills the gap that a shrinking retirement system left behind, and the system doesn't make it easy on them. Lower paying work, an earnings test that looks like a penalty, taxes on the benefits they depend on, a job market that too often treats gray hair as a discount. The real story here isn't that older Americans are working. People have always worked. The story is why so many now have to, in a country wealthy enough that it shouldn't come down to guesswork. Retirement was sold as a finish line. For a growing share of Americans, it's turned into a slower lap, still running just with a lot less left in the tank. If this made the economics of working in retirement a little clearer, take a second to like the video and subscribe. It really does help more people find these breakdowns. Thanks for watching.